favor?
Those, the vote, so I have to do it first, but I'll give it to Carla so she can read it.
Okay. Okay, so seeing as there's last call for in favor. Okay, so then we will move on. Does anyone wish to testify in opposition to the application? Vicente?
This opposition to all three parts.
It can be in opposition to any one of the three, so yes. Are you good? Is that a yes from you?
Yeah.
All right. Name and address, please.
Vicente Escalante, address 310 North Wilson Street. Can make just a couple quick points. And this is in regards to just the zoning. As a resident, I would just recommend that we leave the zoning as it is. And if, a property owner wants to change anything, then just, go ahead and submit like the application. I believe Dawn had mentioned last meeting that, that's a process that people can do. And I think earlier Dave was mentioning that people had done that before, wanting like zoning change for the properties and stuff. So I'd say leave it as it is, at least for the golf course. I've double checked a couple different golf courses, like Stone Creek over in Oregon City for those golfers. That's zoned as FF10, which is farm forest. And so just leaving it as like public open space and not residential is my recommendation. And then like if anybody wants to like change their properties again, just like submit like the process, right? Like I'm sure it's a lot of work. I spoke with Paul Lapp years back in like '97. I have the paperwork if any of the council members or if anybody of the public would like to see him and his wife, Natalie, they had gone through the process of submitting like their property, getting zoned differently. Theirs is a little bit different just because it deals with urban growth boundary area, but it was to include what is now Echo Heights. But I have all the documents that they went through, all the process and all the steps working with the city, with like Oregon Water Reserve, WOW, yeah, that, and then the assessors and everything. So, and talking to them, like it was a strenuous process, but like it was the right way to do it, I suppose. Other than that, like I think as far as like the comprehensive plan itself, I was on it, and there's like a lot of good things that we've done. I think the council would consider maybe giving it like another 2 weeks before voting on it in case there's some more like trickle in from the residents that want to like submit like specific sections, like chapter 2, section 2.11.20, whatever that they can. I'd say like give another 2 weeks is my recommendation. Then after that, but yeah, that's all I have right now.
Thanks.
So thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, anyone else in opposition?
May I ask a question? I just have a question.
Okay, we'll get to you. Sure. Come on up.
Gina Sager, 3229 Marble Street. Dave kind of answered a lot of my questions, but I already wrote this, so I'm going to just read the whole thing. Okay? First, I want to say I appreciate the service of the city council and the mayor. I know it's a stressful job when the passions are high. The decision the council is about to make could forever change our town, and I'd like to ask that you slow down and reconsider what you are doing. If the zoning and comprehensive plan hasn't had a major overhaul in years, it doesn't mean we need these major changes. Sometimes the lack of change is the desired effect people might want. Echo is one of the few towns that have held on to the small town rural appeal, and from what I hear, that's what attracts people to Echo. That being said, I know there are updates that need to be made to meet Oregon laws and regulations, but there is no need for these huge changes. With all due respect, I feel Carla's guidance is leading you away from where a majority of Echo citizens would like to see you go. What makes Echo special is we aren't like other towns. We do not need every square inch of property to be zone buildable. We do not need too many building rules and regulations. We need to hold on to what little open space zoning we have, or we will lose our rural appeal. When people buy property zoned open space, they know they are buying property that is not buildable. My mother was on the committee that chose to zone the property between the ditches permanent open space in the 70s. They had 3 reasons for this zoning. 1, fear of undermining the integrity of the ditches and causing flooding. 2, it was recognized as an area of abundant wildlife and native plants. 3, they wanted to preserve the scenic appeal of Echo. All 3 hold true today. That zoning should not be changed. And this part they've already spoke about. I was going to speak about the commercial, but it sounds like we're on the right track there. I haven't had time to really go through the comprehensive plan, but what I do know is less is more. We do not need a lot of new rules and regulations. I've been told there are many. Why not address the state regulations that aren't being met? And if there are any concerns by citizens, address them. And I would like to ask you to slow this down, which it seems like you guys are starting to do, and I appreciate that. And let the community be part of the process. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. And I want to say I appreciate that you've been having the meetings at 6 to accommodate working people. That's it. And also, I want to pass something out for me that has to do with the open zoning.
It's a trick, so.
Absolutely.
If you're ready. Okay, that's okay. Up to you. Well, it will all in there. If you're okay.
I'm absolutely okay with that. And this, I had a fella ask me if I'd pass out these to you. They didn't really want to be involved, but some of the people signed it. It's this packet with different concerns for you guys to read privately, okay?
Did you say one of those in the record or these?
These
Record or
are
not?
for all you guys to read, I guess. Yeah, put it in the record.
Yeah, it's just a clarification.
We can just give you a copy of that, Dave, and if there's anything in there that needs to be addressed.
Okay.
It's about what Gina.
First.
Yeah. But I don't even know if you feel like the policy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. Okay, so we had a gentleman in the back that was at the same time as Gina. If you'd like to, you're still. Yeah. Okay. And then Jeannie, I'll get to you next. That's what you. We can hear you. Name and address, please.
991 East Road and 1231 East Road.
And your name.
Jeff Slauson.
Thank you, Jeff.
I was just curious how this is going to affect me, the situation there. I know 10 years ago I came into town and I went in and asked about buying a business permit. And they said, well, for what? I said, well, Echo Auction and Trading Post. Well, then they informed me that there would be no junk at the bottom of the golf course hill. So I then proceeded to say, well, I didn't ask for a junk permit. Well, it kind of escalated from there. And I had a lot of financial, I'm trying to think of the right words for it, situations that occurred due to not calling in not calling in a locate, which I called in 6 months prior. So everything they threw at me, they had to throw back out. So I was just curious, when I go to do this auction, I'm going to do, because I'm going to be doing a limited state auction of my own, from selling off my own stuff. And when you guys see signs and everything out there, And I haven't announced the sale yet, but when you see them, which you will, how is this gonna affect that in the long run? Or should I hang around and go and keep on with the business?
Hey, Jeff. Is there anything in the actual plan that you were opposed to?
Well, that's what I'm asking. We were talking about, me and a friend of mine were talking about just going and making an RV park there or doing something, but
So do you want to hang out after the meeting and maybe we could see what your concerns are and.
that would be great.
That out? If you're willing to do that, then.
Absolutely.
Absolutely to hang out and.
Okay. Because I mean, I want to do business correctly in Echo, and I want to buy the right permits, jump through the right hoops, but I know by them not selling junk permits, which wasn't what I asked.
Sure, well, let's talk after the meeting.
Okay,
Perfect, thank you, Jeff.
thank you. That's all.
Okay, Jean, come on up to the podium.
Jean Hampton, Echo, Oregon. My question is about the HOA thing, because I'd like to know if the area next to me over on East Jane Street is considered a development or if it's city. Because you said that a development can have their own HOA, and then I read that if your house burns down, then you have to rebuild according to HOA. So we don't have an HOA in the city.
You don't,
So my question is that going to be city or is it going to be a development?
are you talking about the new annexation in the?
Snows fields, yes.
Field? Okay, we'll address that in the.
You don't have an answer?
Well, that might
I mean,
be
is it a
the time.
development or is it part of the city is all I'm asking.
We annexed it into the city.
We did annex it in the city,
2.5
correct?
years ago.
So it can't have an HOA because it's part of the city.
The city cannot have an HOA, but their development, a subdivision can have its own rules and regulations.
But they're not
But
proposing.
they
on
only
themselves.
apply to them.
They did that,
Okay.
right. And they're made up by themselves. That answers your question. Okay, anyone else wish to testify in opposition? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. My name is Annette Kirkpatrick. I'm the district manager of Hermiston Irrigation District. We're located at 366 East Trowbridge Avenue. I haven't had a chance to do a great deal of research on this matter. HID does not get notices for anything going on in the city of Echo. I have not specifically asked for them in the last couple of years as a general, to get everything sent to us. I have in the past, but we don't get that information anymore. I'm a little surprised considering we have a canal that can run over 250 CFS through it that goes right through the city. And I think myself, and I cannot speak for Stanfield, but we have some concerns about what you guys are considering open space. And I want to make sure that none of the places where the feed canal is located is considered open space. That property was acquired by the federal government according to the 1892 Canals Act. And so 50 feet on either side from the center of that ditch belongs to the federal government, is operated by Hermiston Irrigation District. It runs from November to March potentially. And so we have no interest in having that be open space. It is not for public use. There isn't supposed to be anyone walking down the canals. It is specifically intended by the federal government to be for operations and maintenance of these irrigation districts. And so we would have some concern about homes going in between those two canals as well. Those canals were put in over 120 years ago. They do need some rehabilitation, and I don't think that putting big, heavy homes up there in between those two canals is going to be a very steady ground for them to be on. So we just want to express our concern, and I will immediately put in my request tomorrow from my office that we start getting notices from the city of Echo. We work very well with the cities of Umatilla, Hermiston, and Stanfield. Unfortunately, I don't make it over here often enough, and that's probably something I need to do, is to keep our district involved more as you guys are growing quickly. And so there again, you have places like the Snow property. Well, that canal leaks and has seepage like crazy. There is going to be lots of groundwater they're going to find under there. Have they contacted us to line it or to do anything that would prevent any damage from them homes? No. At the end of the day, who's going to be responsible for it? When those homes get flooded out in a couple of years after they're built, they're going to come to us. And we have not made any preparation to protect these subdivisions or these homes. Nobody has communicated with us at all. And so just want to express my concern about your open spaces and some of those places where the subdivisions are going in and there isn't any coordination with the irrigation district. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
That's the lower canal one.
Ours is the lower canal, yes. Yeah,
What did you say the distance was from the center of the canal?
50 by 50 from the center of the ditch.
Mayor, can I
Yes.
ask a clarifying question?
Yes, you may.
If you wouldn't mind inquiring if they own the 59 each side in fee simple or if it is an easement?
It is fee simple by the Bureau of Reclamation, all of the fee, 95% of the feed canal is.
So
It is
that-
not an easement.
So just for the rest of us, what fee simple means.
That means the federal government owns the land for the purpose of operations and maintenance of this infrastructure. It is not an easement that can be just accessed.
That has been brought up in preceding meetings that concern that question, so.
I'm easy to get a hold of.
All right, thank you. Okay, so anyone else in opposition? Okay, so Carl, would you like to read? I think we have a letter that leans towards opposition, or maybe two.
There are two.
Okay,
Yes.
would you like to read those, or
Sure.
wonderful, I'll let you then.
You have let's see, we go alphabetical, I guess, Diane Berry goes for Hampton. So in alphabetical order.
Who's your name?
Oh, please. Dear Echo City Council, this is from Diane Berry, retired Echo City Administrator Recorder. This is my second letter regarding the proposed amendments to the city comp plan, having worked with the comp plan from 1983 to 2019, and going through one update to it about 7 years ago, working with contractors from David Evans and Associates. I believe there's very little that needs changing. Also, after a quick review of LCDC zoning requirements and goals, it doesn't seem like the council has received good guidance. For instance, pushing to rezone the golf course to residential. No Oregon golf course is zoned residential. Some have sections of residential, but courses are zoned POS, recreational, or exclusive farm use. In some jurisdictions, that allow golf courses as a conditional use in an EFU zone. Based on this, there is absolutely no need to change Echo Hills to residential, especially as any expansion will take years of planning, fundraising, and land acquisition at the minimum, plenty of time to request an appropriate zone change for housing areas. Again, review the state language on goal 5 and POS. The guidance given the city doesn't line up with the goal. There have also been attempts to belittle the original permanent open space designation because it isn't publicly accessible or certified. In Oregon, open space zoning is a tool used to preserve land in a natural or recreational state, often as part of a comprehensive land use plan. These zones aim to maintain open areas for public benefit, whether through natural preservation or recreational facilities. Preservation and enhancement. Open space zoning seeks to preserve and enhance both public and private open spaces. Further, most jurisdictions do designate parks and spaces like the Arboretum, Athletic Field, Georgia and Fort Henrietta Parks as POS or recreational, not commercial or residential. I would recommend that the city staff and council do some of their own research of Oregon land use goals, and in particular goal 5 and goal 1. A simple search via Google, which uses AI to compile information, may be enlightening and help you refocus on goals of the state and our community. Sincerely, Diane Berry. This one is from former Mayor Key Hampton as a concerned citizen. Dear council person, I urge you to vote no on the new comprehensive plan. The plan only needed an update, not a redo, like the Oh, like the town was a big city. Have you read the new plan? Did you compare with the old plan? Where are the suggestions from the public input? That was number one. The grant agenda. Why are we listening to the planner when the city administrator, who is the one that should be adding the citizen ideas after the council decided what to use of their suggestions? The grant said to get input at each stage of the process. The planner was to advise on legalities, not rewrite a new one. Were you listening to what the public said? Why was the mayor worried about how long we spoke instead of what we were saying? Were the signatures not counted for those against? At a meeting, I asked why you received a grant you had to vote yes on. The answer was no. Do not feel pressured to accept what the planner wrote because she knows all the answers to her plan. Listen to the citizens and update the plan with public input. The whole process should be communicated to the public, not meetings held behind closed doors. Build back trust with the citizens. Vote no, just update. Sincerely, former Mayor E. Hampton.
Okay, I think that's all the letters in opposition, correct? All right. So now. So does anyone, so is there any more opposition for the letters? One last call. Okay, so does anyone wish to testify that are not in favor or opposition, or that would like to ask a question? Okay, so there is a letter, titled neutral letter, it looks like, and you have that from Marie Rose.
I do.
Okay, good, then I'll let you read that.
It was addressed to Dave and Carla. This is Marie Rose, physical address, 310 South Bonanza Street, mailing PO Box 326 in Echo. I'm unable to attend in person due to a family emergency and have a letter of neutrality for tonight's meeting. To the community, I think instead of blaming who we want to, we need to blame who we should. According to comments I've heard over the last few public meeting sessions, the TAC path is who you should be mad at. Carla provided guidance and structure for each session and encouraged a tailored approach for Echo when not limited by statute. Unless something different happened in the last couple of committee meetings during my absence, the city administrator, Dave, and the mayor, Chad, did not instruct the committee to accept or refuse any portions. They did speak up during points of contention to get the committee back on track. I feel the committee worked in good faith to come up with a presentable option, and I'm sorry we failed your expectations. To the Echo City Council, I implore you to focus on the following considerations for zoning changes. Community impact. If someone's house, business burned down in the new zone areas, could they rebuild? What options would they have? Along the canal, would other agencies, e.g. irrigation district, need to be involved in decisions to modify the property? Would anything change for the community if the private open space is changed, like canal easement rights? 2, environmental impact. Specifically along the canal, would zone changes impact the property in a negative way, e.g. make the ground unstable if earth was disrupted to build? Please forgive me if any of these points have been clarified prior to reading this letter. I hope Echo residents will continue providing suggestions of what to change and how to make the comprehensive plan, zoning, etc. better for our community. Thank you for your time in presenting this on my behalf. Sincerely, Marie Rose.
Okay, thank you, Carla.
Yeah, question and.
Okay, so last call then for anybody with a question. Nope, it's okay.
Raising my hand.
Step on it.
Phyllis Shabelsky, 221 West Main, PO Box 127 Echo. I have a question about the grant. I've heard a lot of things about this grant and how people have said we're being held hostage by the grant and the money. I would challenge everybody who was on that planning committee and the council. You've gotten millions of dollars in grants, am I correct? And in all of those grants, there are always specifics and guidelines about how the money will be used, how long you have to use the money,
and where the money will be directed. So I've heard that I didn't understand the grant, or we didn't realize, we're being held hostage to this. And from my perspective, having dealt with grants for a nonprofit, you know where you're going, you know what the problems are, you know what your guidelines are. And I'm somewhat offended to have people say that they didn't understand the process. They didn't understand what we were going to do with that money. And I guess my big question is, did everybody on the council read that? Did you understand what that grant meant and how you had to use the money and the timeline in which you had to use it? I'm asking a question.
Do we want to answer that? I just want to make sure.
Public comment is usually comments, and then there's usually an opportunity to provide a response that either from staff or.
Okay. So, Phyllis, I'll get to that here shortly.
Thanks.
I appreciate you for your question. Okay, anyone else? Okay, then, seeing as there was no one in that, testified in favor, you don't need to go ask them to come back up again. So at this time, public testimony is over. Thank you, everyone. And we will, move on to council deliberations. My buzzer's gonna go off, I apologize. There it goes. Okay, so, council, let's, we've got a lot of things, we've heard a lot of things, we've got some information from Dave, we've got some information from Carla. Some of us, I'm sure all of us have probably been doing a lot of research, I know I have. So first, we have a question out there. I think we answered Jeannie's question. So we don't have to go down that road, but for Phyllis, I can answer your question. You asked, did the council understand the parameters of the grant, the timelines and such? Yes. Before we voted on it, I was given a copy of the grant parameters. And before we accepted that money, I read those so I could make an informed decision. So.
But what I've heard is other people on the council did not.
Yeah, but we're not going back and forth this time, but I got that note. So for the other council members, would you guys like to, anybody like to speak up and answer Phyllis's question? I answered for myself. Not good. I can't answer for the rest of the council, but I know the council did vote on that grant. And I would hope that they did do research in it before they voted on it. Maria.
I wasn't a city council member.
That's correct. So Maria did not vote on that grant. It was Dick Yoder.
So we voted. I didn't have research with phones of it or anything. So, if you want to be truthful about it.
I never received the grant or read it. I only heard the comments on the council. And the first time I really saw the grant was when Carl dumped it on the city council, or about 6 weeks ago. I never, that's the first time that I looked at it and read it.
Well, so honestly, it was so long ago that we did get the grant and look over it, so now I'm kind of like fuzzy on it. But I do like to remember the grant coming through, and we were excited that we got the opportunity to update our comp plan and zoning, just like the other cities in our county were doing. And At that time, I understood it was supposed to be a year project, over 12 months, and that's where the money went, to hire an advisor and to have the right people guiding us to, update all these things. So like I said, it was so long ago that I don't remember all the details and even how much it was for, but
I keep records of everything, and, I don't have a record of the grant. After the meetings, I keep them and file them. So, and I was at that meeting, so, if it was given out, I didn't get one. So. That's on us. We should have asked.
I remember us voting on it, but also parroting the letter in the email, and I remember looking at that. But I don't remember all the fine details.
Yes.
But I also was on the committee, and I remember our first meeting, kind of went over the grant, like, okay, have this time frame. The people we selected from the committee are representing the community. And we just kind of went forward with the meetings. And to echo what Berlin said, we were just excited that we got the grant, and we're, doing it in other cities in our county, and we were just,
Okay. So there's your answer. If that answers your question. So the last meeting, I guess we need to get into discussing public comments and concerns. And the one that Dave brought up in the staff report, I guess is probably the one we could start with. The council's good with that. Looking at the residential commercial zone. As I read this, there's two options that we could use to address the concerns of the residents in that zone, because it is kind of a unique thing to have houses in a residential zone, although it's not unheard of. I'm sure other cities have that as they grow their commercial area, the houses kind of become part of that. One, and Carla, please interrupt me if I'm wrong, but as I see it, we could keep the commercial zone as it was originally zoned back in 78 and have it change the language of that zoning to address the fact that if somebody has a house there and it always stays a house, that it could always be a residence, I guess I should say.
yeah. Staff response to that would be, you really have two options. You can retain the map as currently presented, which goes back to the original 1978 map, which shows the commercial from, Bonanza to the other one. Okay. You could, again, retain it as commercial. And add language to your commercial zone as presented in the current development code, in the updated development code, that would add a residential use. And I would actually write it probably more specific than it's currently written in the proposed language, because the proposed language kind of allows houses, but it's like the 20th item on the list. So clearly, even in the neighborhood or the residential commercial zone that was created, it's primarily a commercial zone. Residential use is a secondary component to that. So I think you have two options. You could choose to make it a residential commercial zone. But if you read that proposed language, and that is almost verbatim what is in your current zoning ordinance, it is for all intents and purposes predominantly a commercial zone with the allowance for housing. So you could leave it not the way we're proposing it as commercial and simply add language to the current proposed text that would allow a residential use. You get the same thing either way. You have two paths.
I have a so I still think about the example you gave us about that fruit stand on 730 that was a house, but it was vacant for so long.
Right.
So if we keep it currently how it is with the commercial, but then the houses that are residential stay residential, are those houses still, like, if it burns down a year later, still nobody's been there, can it still stay residential?
So as long as you allow a residential use in the zone, then you can replace the house.
Okay.
If a business burned down, you could replace it with a house.
Okay.
The difference about the example I provided is that was a commercial zone that does not allow for residential use.
Okay, that's good. And it's still that vision that.
It's a good vision.
Yeah. And now I know why for so long I drove past it.
It's being redeveloped.
Okay, good.
I don't know, a lot of downtown type areas have residential uses, isn't that kind of a common thing, like H&P, for example? They live below their business, so that's commercial and residential.
So the term mixed use is I can't say emerging. It's been around for a long time, but mixed use is a term that is regularly used in commercial areas as a path to integrate residential uses into your commercial zone. Mixed use usually requires that the commercial use be storefront. So if you were to look at your main street, you would want your ground level storefront to be just that, a storefront, whether it be retail, a restaurant, attorney's office. Maybe Mr. Blanc would like to have satellite office in Echo. He's got so much business happening here. So you would have that commercial use as your storefront, whatever that commercial use be. And then you would allow the residential use to either be on the second and third floors, possibly behind. The life H&P was the basement, but that's certainly another option. Usually those mixed use zones also though require that the commercial use, if it is a front and back, that it be primarily or more than 51% commercial use. So that you're preserving or providing that focus for that commercial activity. Yep.
And then, as we heard last time, some folks were concerned about reverse mortgages and financing. And I haven't done any research in this. I'm not in the mortgage business, but I could probably call lenders and find out. Those folks were able to get
They were able to.
financing at one point in time, even though it says commercial on their zone.
The current language authorizes a residential use and
So then they should not have any trouble.
should not have any
with
trouble with that.
financing.
Yeah, I mean, again, it is, read the current zone language. It is predominantly a commercial zone that allows for some residential activity.
Right, under the current.
Even under the current zoning
Yes,
ordinance,
yes.
yes.
So for a city administrator or a city council, would it be, it seems to me that leaving it, to me, this is my opinion, I'm not speaking for the council, but it seems to me that it would be easier to leave it as commercial with that and add that language in, that if there's a house there now, it can, if the landowner so chooses, it can always stay a residence. But it also has the option to go to commercial. That seems to be more clear cut than having a list of whatever it is, 30 some permitted uses, and then have to figure out if it's not in that list, then is it conditional use, or where do we go? It seems like that would be a lot more difficult for the property owner to deal with than the other way. That's just my thoughts. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, if there wants to be some conversation over there, I don't need to interrupt that, but I guess my response to that would be, as Dave said, it started out as all commercial, and then over a series of number of years, kind of parcel by parcel, piece by piece, you really have a map that that is kind of has a jagged line through there, and on one side it's commercial, on the other side it's not. And in fact, some of the properties that are residential are now residential, commercial, whatever it is, are actually front on Main. And, so I think it is a good question. What's the focus? And I think as when you look at where a community is and where it's growing, the more you back away from your commercial zone, the more you diminish that. Then when you do have growth and you do want to ensure that there's an opportunity for that commercial activity, you will have potentially watered that opportunity down. So if you have a clear intent that from this side of the street to the side of the other street, so 2 full blocks, your intent is commercial, yes, there's a lot of homes, no, we're gonna not take them out, and yes, we're gonna continue to allow them, then you're kind of getting both sides of the boat.
Yes.
Can I ask a question to the attorney? So, the big concern is the taxes and that they'll be taxed more and the mortgages, and they can't give the loans they need, the first buyer loan. If we do this commercial residential, are those people assured that won't happen? They won't be harmed?
Well, I don't think just because, as long as residential use is allowed within the zone, I don't think the adoption of this code would affect the valuation, because the county has very specific guidelines to value property. So I don't think that would change the valuation of the current use of the property. If it's a residence, it would be valued as a residence. If it's a commercial or a business, it would be valued as a business. So I don't think that would impact. I think as far as financing and things, if it's an allowed use, I don't see why a lender would have a problem with it.
So, I'm hearing you say things and I don't think, could we put this off till next time to vote so we can go to the tax people and ask them to make sure that our code, they will not be affected and they'll still be able to get those loans?
That is up to the council.
Yeah, just that would just be safer because, we had, 13 people very, I guess it was about 13, I don't remember, a lot of people that would be affected that are impaired anyway in their finances. And I feel more comfortable if we really know before I vote.
Well, I would say that that's fine.
Mhm.
That's the council's decision to make.
Okay,
And I think though that if the county were to change how they would value the property, while it wouldn't be ideal, that landowner could certainly challenge that valuation and have a good case.
So just so the council's clear, I had to get some clarification on this as well. These things that we're talking about tonight don't require a vote for us to keep going, correct? We can change things in here with kind of a head nod of sorts, and then we can publish that out to the community that, hey, we made these changes to the proposed plan, and then give them an opportunity to give us feedback on those, and we can go back, or we can go forward, or we can manipulate it whatever we need to be, but we don't vote until we're satisfied that we have a document that we can live with. So that's when we make the final vote. So we can make changes along the way, but we need to let folks know that we're doing that, so they have an opportunity to comment on those.
I've never been under the impression that we have to vote right now. For me, it's understanding that we have the committee and we're making proposals, but then we have to go to the public and we want their feedback, and then we make changes, and then we make another proposal, and then we feel like, well, I've never felt like we need to vote like right now.
Okay, well, I just wanted to make sure. Tammy had said vote, so it just.
Yeah.
I'll take the vote, yeah. Well, I'll just leave it, but don't feel comfortable making a change and stuff.
Sure. Okay.
Especially a change like this.
No, it really is one of the biggest concerns that, as far as I know, we've heard from the community. And so it really does need to be investigated, and I'm not none of us here work at the assessor's office and none of us are mortgage people. And, so it is something that, you know, the lawyer says, I'm pretty sure that's not 100%. So, yeah. Okay, so is everybody kind of good with that, those two proposals and seeing how that affects folks that, like Tammy said, I don't see anything wrong with making sure before we do it. We're not in a hurry, so. So this side of the room, I was looking that way, everybody else is cool with that? Okay, very good. So we have some homework to do. All right. Hopefully, hopefully we can address all the issues of folks and not have any harm at all. That's the intent here. Okay, so then.
Rather than have the assessor's office receive 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 phone calls, do you want to focus that inquiry to the assessor's office by either staff or a member? I'm just.
Yeah, no, that's a good thought. I guess, Dave, do you want to take that on and get that information? Would the council be okay with Dave finding out the facts on that? I think coming from the city administrator, they would probably be pretty responsive to that. Is that okay?
I have good relations with all of them.
Okay, the council is okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, very well. Then, there you go. All right, so that takes care of that big one. Don't really think we need to go into the process up to this point or the grant requirements or anything like that. I know people have stated their concern with some of those and a survey that goes about, that's already been addressed as far as I know. Unless you guys want to delve down that road, but it has nothing really to do with the document in front of us and the content thereof. So we talked about the zoning. So the other one that she's got in here is parks. Diane's letter had addressed some concerns with the Fort Henrietta Park and George Park and changing the zoning of that. And as we've discussed before, we know the parks can be in residential zones. They happen in residential zones all the time. They can be in commercial zones. They can be in open space. They can be in just about any zone known to man can have a park. But one thing that was in here that struck me was having a designation. I don't have it highlighted, but sorry. But a designation of sorts, like the council could designate that as a park. And Carla, can you help me out with that? I'm sorry.
Sure. What's your question again?
They don't do a fair question.
Oh, sorry, I got it. Sorry, guys. It's been a lot. I've been getting phone calls, and people are making me research a lot of stuff, and so it all gets jumbled up in there. So I do apologize. Bear with me. So as far as the zoning goes, does the council want to change the zone of the parks? But it looks like we don't need to change the zone of the parks, but if we wanted to emphasize the fact that those parks are important to the city, we could.
So I think the issue is not zoning, it's about dedicated parkland. Which is not, does not have to be a function within your development code. So when a community decides to preserve property, park right over there, on the other side of that wall. You are correct with your statement, it doesn't matter what it's zoned. It could be zoned commercial, it could be zoned residential. Part of my attempt here in this process was to provide a simpler development code for the community. And eliminate all of the ancillary zones that you apply to one piece of property. It's a lot of work to apply to one or two pieces of property. The more important action, and Ms. Berry is not wrong, it's about how do you preserve that use? How do you going forward say, this is a park, this is important, we want to make sure that 50 years from now, this is still a park. That's not a zoning issue. That's a council taking action to dedicate land for a specific purpose based on your ownership or based on some other factor. It does not have to be zoning. So if you want to assure that Fort Henrietta Park or George Park or some future Joe's Park is always going to be parkland, then I would say you have another task in front of you, unrelated to this. And that is to define where you want those parks to be and if they're already in place to dedicate that park space. And interestingly enough, your skate park is in the middle of right of way. It's not on land that actually can be dedicated as park space. You need to address what the current ownership of that property is. You own it, but you own it for a different purpose. You own it for purposes of a street, not for purposes of park. So as you look at those things, you're going to need to go through those processes. And while people start complaining that I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm basing that determination based on looking at your map. It is in dedicated right of way. If there was a process that happened when the skate park was created, the process was never completed or confirmed because the skate park is in the middle of road right of way. So it's on property dedicated for a specific purpose, not the purpose you want it to be dedicated for. So I would say the park dedication process is really, in the end, and I've been in other communities that have reached kind of the same point. How do we make sure parkland remains parkland? It's not a zoning issue. It's a park dedication. It's a land dedication issue. It's about the council making a decision about how you use land you own or have authority over.
Very good, thank you for that.
Mr. Blanc may have something you want to add to that.
I just wanted to say I agree with that. It's not a zoning issue. Okay, dedicated for a particular purpose, use.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Dave mentioned it earlier about the Umatilla Golf Course having layers. That's kind of like something it would be, so it's zoned something and we would have the designation like on top of that.
You could do that. So the city of Umatilla in particular has a number of overlay zones. So they have a more encumbered zoning process than what has been proposed for Echo. So again, simple, you have it zoned. They have used the overlay zone to do that, but at the end of the day, that is still not a dedication that the city has determined they want to make that a park and retain it as a park indefinitely. So once you do a park dedication or you dedicate land for City Hall, to undo that, you've got to go back through that same process where you're going to do something to undo that dedication. So that requires and your attorney can give you better advice on this, but it would either be a resolution or an ordinance to do that park dedication. Usually a resolution, but different jurisdictions do different processes.
Okay. Thank you.
So, the same thing, but you have other people.
Well, why did you?
Mine Parks and Zone 2 developments. So
Okay, so this is kind of different, so, because currently, if I'm looking at the current map, the parks are under public use, and so this might be more of a question for the attorney, because when I'm trying to look on the state website, I can't get an answer of. So the park is in public zoning, public use, and so, and maybe, Mr. Zumwalt can answer too, for like our homeless population and their rights they have is it easier? And I don't want to sound judgmental, but like, we're a small town, we don't have a lot of resources, and so we have people come in and camp on our parks, So do we have more rights in the city if it's zoned a certain way, like public use, do the homeless have more rights, or would the city have more rights if we're zoned residential? Does that make any sense? Or
I'm gonna let them go first. and then I'm gonna-
just thinking, we're so small, we don't have resources, and we're gonna get more resources. All these little kids running around town, and even we're an older population here, and
As far as to answer the question of camping things, if somebody from the city came to me and said, we have an issue of people camping in the park, the first thing I would do is look at your code and see what restrictions in your code are on camping and things like that. And I'm not necessarily looking to zoning, but just what your code provides for that, and whether that's a violation of your code.
yeah,
Lots of codes have restrictions on parking campers at a location for a certain period of time or a limited period of time, and they have to be moved, those sorts of things. That's what I would look at first.
yeah. And I'm specifically talking about the homelessness through people camping, but like if we have a homeless population come in, they're camping out in the state park and our city park and it's in public zoning, would they have more leeway if it was like residential or commercial?
So again, I don't think zoning is.
It's the ordinance.
Right,
Okay.
so the state, and LLC has provided guidance in the past, but, based on, first the Boise case and then the, Grants Pass case, there are some very specific requirements, and some suggested things you can do with your code. But to be clear, that would be the municipal portion of your code, not your development
Okay.
code.
Okay.
Correct. I agree, and that's a pretty complicated constitutional issue to get.
Yeah, it's very complicated.
Okay.
And also with the Supreme Court, so there's been some changes to it since
Yeah.
state of Oregon
Yeah.
did its thing. So
Okay.
my question to Carla, maybe I already know the answer, but you were just discussing about the overlay. And it got me thinking a little bit too, is that public space. So with the golf course, if you did residential, but dedicated the actual course itself to not be a open or a public space, not to ever have residents on it, would that achieve the same thing as some of the zoning language that we've discussed? So in other words, it would be dedication, so nobody could put a house on Fairway 100%. So I mean, that's what I'm just trying to alleviate some of that. Because there's so many things going on with this, and I've read so many different things about so many golf courses that I've actually kind of overwhelmed myself, which is hard to do, and try to figure out where that line is. Because I don't disagree with everybody that's opposed it. I don't disagree with even Vicente's comments about commercial and things like that. I think those all have valid points. I really do. Just trying to find that medium ground to keep it a freaking golf course, which is my old, but also allow housing down the road on the backside, on the east side, if that land ever came into the city, and that was where my brain went the whole time. Obviously,
that's where the committee put that.
some of it, but there was a lot of back and forth, and I don't want to beat a dead horse. I just want to make sure that I'm giving you the right information and that we're all on the same page on that, as far as what information's out.
Well, I think Jamie, go ahead.
I was just wondering if you would just leave it as commercial or what it is now. So we can always visit later down the road if somebody wants to request residential up there. I mean, we don't have to put residential up there at this time. It can always be addressed later on down the road.
That is an option. I think leaving it as open space is not a good designation from what I've learned about all this last couple of years, because I didn't go to planning school, but this has been a school for me as well this last 2 years. So I would say that better it would be, some type of other zoning to kind of meet that type of use, whether it's public use or mixed use or some sort of thing. I'm not the planner and I don't have 25 years of experience, but I don't think open space, which is what it's currently coded, that it really fits it, because open space is public space, but it's not developed space. That's severely developed. So it kind of, to me, doesn't really match that. So some sort of thing saying that's developed, it's used, it's a public use, it's open to the public, it's publicly owned for the taxpayers. So that's just my thought process, because there's been a lot of back and forth on IBM. Some of my members at the golf course have been very passionate about, worried about it. And so I think it's a fair thing to talk about.
So just to be clear, it is not zoned open space. It is currently has a designation that is public use, public and semi-public use.
But originally it was open space.
I don't, maybe, but if the,
Yeah, it was.
the comp plan map,
Yeah.
comp plan map shows it as a public use.
Right.
And the 6 places that are identified as public use, you don't have any regulations for those. So to some degree, if you decided to put another building up, you don't have a mechanism by which to apply development standards to those properties that have just that public use kind of designation to them. Your current code doesn't have it. We didn't develop anything for the proposed code. So I think you approach the golf course the same way you approach Fort Henrietta or George Park. It's in a residential zone, you apply residential zoning, commercial zoning. I think I don't know if that's where you want to go, but you could apply commercial zoning, but I would encourage you to apply a zone that you have development code language for. And the way we wrote the residential zone is it allowed a golf course as a conditional use. We specifically. So, clubhouse, pro shop, restaurant, snack bar, whatever. Again, I don't remember, and you could look at that language and refine it. Again, that's that specific question. Does the language equate what you want to achieve? So what I would tell you is if you wanted to do something more, depending on how that language is written, that golf course is allowed as a conditional use in the residential zone the way it is currently proposed. If you wanted to add a service to that, it would require a conditional use permit. And I want to clarify something that was said earlier. Conditional use permits are not issued by the council, they are issued by the planning commission. It's a type 3 decision, and when the city council sits as the planning commission, you're not sitting as the council. There is a clear distinction about how your role functions then.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Ann.
So can you remind me, Dave, what are the public places, the 67-6 that say they're public? It's the cemetery, the golf course.
No, there is on that list.
It's not on that list.
It's the church.
The church.
Oh, the church, okay, that answers the question.
Church, the fire station, the city hall complex, including the park, the cemetery, the school, and the golf course.
You're right.
And the reason that I'm hearing that you don't want to do it is because we don't have any language written for public uses. And we didn't have any language in our former one that was very up to date for public uses
Didn't have any.
at all. And that's,
So,
I don't
so-
remember seeing.
so what would happen is if we wanted to build something on the golf course, we would have no direction of what to do or how to do it.
Right, but we don't have the ability now to add those to our comprehensive plan, keep that public use zoning for those places, and then they would feel more comfortable and write the language for that.
You'd have to write it, in the code.
We have to
You would
write
language
under the
that
section in the code,
addresses
that's zoning.
what you could do there, how it would go, what the process would be, we would have to go through.
It just seems cleaner to me to do the public and add that portion in the comprehensive plan for that zone, the public.
Yeah, no, I
The
guess,
public use, and then
I see what you're
cleaner
saying.
instead of being mixed in with residential and commercial, and then write the stuff in there that they can have the opportunity. And I agree with Jane, some of this we can revisit later, but then those people would not change it out, and they are public use. All
Right,
those
but-
places are public
I
use.
think what Carla is saying is that you already have it written in your code. If you were to zone it, a zone that we already have, then we would already have the language. We wouldn't have to rewrite the language and duplicate the language that's already there. It would just already applies without having to write a whole
Well, if
section.
it's
of code.
in the code, why can't we just separate that public use information under a public use zone?
So again, you don't have any in your current zoning ordinance, there's no regulations for how you would manage a use that is zoned public use. And there's nothing unique about those uses. You could, so again, I mean, you could draft language or direct staff to draft language and go back to your current mapping of public use. But you would then need to make sure you have clear requirements for how those uses, and there's a variety, and there's no two uses that are similar. They're all very dissimilar uses. There are also uses that are purposely cited in residential and or commercial zones. So again, it's not an issue of zoning. You guys can direct a map to be different. You can direct additional language to be written. But I think, yeah, I'm gonna leave it. You can choose to do that.
I just, when I'm hearing this, I just think that it would be a safer solution to do the public zoning and put those comments under that. And if they're not there, then when I hear that they're not there, then I'm wondering, are the comments we need to protect these public zoning in the residential and in the commercial to protect it? And it would be better if it was all in one place, so it was clearer and more concise to protect these public service places.
I think, I kind of have to disagree with a little bit with you, Tammy. I think we already have that language. I think that if we, as a council, in a future council meeting, proposed a resolution or an ordinance that protected the golf course as the golf course. So this is what this is what the people of Echo want. And we are going to pass an ordinance that states that this is always going to be a golf course. And then that way, if somebody wants to come in, another council down the road, and wants to undo that, they want to sell the golf course and put a truck stop. I've seen that on Facebook. Then they would have to go through a process of changing that. And a residential zone doesn't allow for a truck stop, so they'd have to go through the zoning process. But if they didn't want it to be a golf course, they would have to go through, they have to rescind the ordinance or amend the ordinance or change the ordinance and make a new ordinance to change it from a golf course.
I guess I just feel like we already have a zone. We have a zone, public zone right now. And I feel like that we can build upon that because I have read the residential and the commercial and the public, and I'm not seeing all the protection of these places in those zones or the rules that go in the comprehensive plan. And so I think it would just be clean to have them zoned as that and addressed as that, so they were clear and concise and they were protected. And we add what we have from, we add what we have from our past plan, and then we add to what we need to give it even further protection.
Well, I guess I'll have to look into it. I admit, I've read it, but I don't recall the exact protections for the golf course, for the school. I mean, the other one is the arboretum that was mentioned as well. You know, there are some things that I, for one, think we need to protect. And so just like going back and finding out mortgage information and taxation information, I think we should make a point to find the specific verbiage that shows where it's protected. And if it's not, then we need to come together as a council on how to do that. Do you guys think that's a good way to move forward on this? Okay, then let's do that. I will spend the next couple of weeks or so, and I will dig through, and I encourage everybody to do the same so that you guys can find that specific stuff that says, hey, this is in here, it can be here, and it's allowed to do whatever its intended use is from here on out.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, yeah, thank you, Tammy, appreciate it. Yes, Jamie?
I'd like that Dave did his homework, the utility golf course zoning, and I like that, service zone layer. A few things like that to maybe consider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that gives us something to chew on. Yes, sir.
Well, I'm wondering if we aren't giving ourselves no matter what zoning decision we make on one of these places, can a future council change it?
Of course they can.
Of course they can. We just want to make
So
sure
what
that it's,
protection does it get?
well, that's where it's. Here. This entire thing can be changed.
Yeah.
Yes, a resident can come in the day after we vote to enact this, or the day after it goes into effect, and ask for a change. At any time, any one of you could ask to have your property rezoned,
So maybe
or
one zoning or another makes it hard.
well, perhaps that's the thought. We want I think where you're going with this is we've heard a lot of the folks want to protect the golf course. They're worried that if it's residential, that'll open the door and make it easier for the council to bulldoze it down and put 400 single wide trailers there. Okay? And we all know on this council, I'll get to this in a second. We all know on this council that we've fought to protect the golf course and improve the golf course and make an investment in the golf course. I think what the worry is from the residents and from us on the council, perhaps, is that how do we send a message that that's what we want to, that's how we want to keep it? This council can't guarantee that tomorrow the next council is gonna keep any of this. I mean, we set our goals as a council and we're trying to live by those, but that's this council. When the folks elect a new council, they may come up with new goals. And new residents are gonna move into town and old ones are gonna move out or pass away or whatever it may be, things change. And those folks may not want what we did. Heaven forbid, but that's the way it works. And so I think there's no rush, in my opinion. And I think that I would like to read and confirm what I'm being told and come up with things that do state that this is in there, that it will make it not necessarily easy, but difficult for someone to change what the residents want. Go ahead, Tammy.
Yeah, Carla, correct me if I'm wrong, but I did read the zoning and it can't be changed the way that I understood it for a year. Once a zoning decision is made, you cannot change it for a year. And when you come back, there's very specific things that there has to be a change or something new for you to change it. So it is a big deal to
That
change
is
it.
for an application submitted by a resident
for calling it a change. If the change is denied, they have to wait 1 year and there has to be a determination that something is significantly different. That is not applicable to your decision to adopt this.
So we can adopt this and change it the next day. That was correct, what Chad said.
You'd have to go through the notice provision, so you couldn't do it the next day, but you could probably do it within the next 6 months.
Start the process.
Yeah, you have to start the process. Once you adopt it and it's adopted, you went, again, you've gone through a process to change your development code. You have to make notice to DLCD 35 days prior to your first hearing. You have to provide notice of that hearing. It's a 2 hearing process. So can you change it the day after? Probably not. But can you change it 6 months later? Absolutely.
And aren't those fees associated with that too? Those changes don't have to pay for that.
So you have a fee schedule that's applicable to the community, to residents who would propose a change. I don't think the city council charges itself a fee.
Right? So it is kind of a complicated process, I'm hearing. So thank you for giving us time to look at it a little closer.
Oh, most
Appreciate it.
definitely. The one thing that I've heard, guys, houses from the residents out here is they want us to take the time, make sure we know what we're talking about, and make sure we make the right decision and give them time to give feedback. And they've done that, and now it's time for us to talk about the feedback. But we don't have to make a decision on it, and let's make the right decision. This is a big deal. This isn't just, we're gonna raise water rates tomorrow. It's, this means that some people could have a big, long process to do something. So, okay. So we're good with that, guys? We're good with that plan to kind of delve into that a little closer? Okay, Diane's letter, we've already kind of talked about this. I'll just touch on it briefly. We don't have to, unless you guys want to talk more, but current zoning regulations located in Title 9 have provisions that require landscaping and setbacks, have requirements how fences can be built, their height, and imposes access and parking requirements. These provisions are currently applicable to new development and any redevelopment that would occur should a home be replaced by choice or because of natural disaster. I got this same concern brought to my attention this week, and I looked at the old regulations, and there's R1, R2, R3, there's all this R. And there's a lot of the same stuff and a lot of the same stuff, okay? But it makes it hard to define the information. You'd be like, okay, what zone am I currently looking at? I like that we have one residential zone. It makes it so much easier. But in our residential, in the current residential, we have setbacks. We have setbacks from the street. We have setbacks on the side. We have setbacks to the back of your house. That's current. And I don't think any of that is, from what I can tell, I didn't see any significant changes to that at all. I also noticed that there's parking restrictions or there's code addressing parking and how many parking spots and how many space for parking and how many cars and all this stuff. And that looked extremely similar to what we have now. Although what we have now seems to delve into more specific types of entities like apartment complexes or duplexes and cottage clusters and those kind of things. Whereas the old codes seem to just address general residential. It didn't seem to nail that down so much. And fencing heights and all that was all still in there. And you guys remember when we annexed in Snows, when we were going through that process of his plating, and that the current code calls for alleyways and the utilities to go through the alley. Well, that's not current, and the utilities don't want to be in an alley, they want to be in the front of the street. So we made a condition to allow that to be in the front of the street because our code now states that it has to get an alley. So where I'm going with this is, yes, this is correct, the new stuff is in there, but it really, if not identical, it's very similar to the old stuff. So the thought that we created a bunch of new things I haven't been able to find yet, but I'm still searching. I still have some homework to do that was brought to me yesterday or the day before, so I'm still working through it. That's my comments on that portion of it. If anybody else has anything? Go for it.
Well, I read the plan, and Ashley, Carla, the comprehensive plan is very organized, and I can appreciate that, and it's clear in the zoning, and it's easier to read than the old plan, which was kind of like Chad said, a little bit all over the place. There are changes though, Chad, in the comprehensive plan, and I'm gonna read them again, and I compare to the old, and so there have been changes, and some of them I disagree with, personally, but, if the other people don't agree with them, then they stay, I'm just one person, but I disagree with some of the changes. But there's some of the changes I appreciate too. They were thoughtfully made. And so hopefully people address some of my concerns, or I get a chance to address some of my concerns for some of the changes. But yeah, no, it is very organized, and I appreciate that, and very clear. So.
Did you want to bring up some of your specific concerns, Tammy, or are you not ready at this time?
Well,
Which is fine.
I am concerned that it's a little more closed in on things we have to do with the houses and Echo's been,
You're talking development code.
yeah, the development.
Oh,
code.
you said
And,
comp.
well, there's comprehensive code too, I read that too. But there's just a few changes, and when we come to that, when we discuss that portion, then I will share. And there's a few things in the, both plans I need to, but actually, some of it is very organized, I agree. And it was a lot of work too, that's nice.
Yeah. Okay, council, does that look like we've addressed most everything?
I think we need to address one more thing, I feel more comfortable. I didn't hear the concerns addressed with the Hermiston Irrigation District. And so I heard the concerns that they have, but I was wondering if it would be good if we could have a meeting with the irrigation districts, Dave and maybe a couple council members, and make sure that we are in line with the Bureau of Land, and we're in line with the easements and the potential problems or lawsuits that we could have before we address the rezoning and the Kyle Stone, so that we stay out of trouble and you stay out of trouble. So I just think that would maybe be a good legal thing of us to do, so we know where we stand on that and where you stand. So I would hope that we could talk to you and Brian and Dave and maybe a couple council members, and I would be willing to sit in on that. But that's just an idea. I don't know if you want to follow on it, but I just would feel better about it.
Yeah, this is the first we've heard from the irrigation folks. There was other irrigation folks at another meeting and they didn't speak. And there's been a lot of concern about that, about the potential of building in between the two canals and what would the irrigation districts impose as regulations and all of that. And so I think that's probably good to get more educated on that. And it was nice to see somebody here. I did not know it was owned by them, so that was a good piece of information to have as well. So yeah, I think getting smarter on that would be wise.
My concern as far as the hearing process would be the ex parte contact between council members, individual council members, and someone else outside the scope of the hearing. I'm not saying it's not a good idea. I'm just concerned about that. And so maybe there would be an alternative approach with some written concerns being submitted in the form of testimony that could be addressed and dealt with and discussed in this forum rather than ex parte contacts.
Okay, that's a good point. So what about, would it be maybe the city administrator and the planner have a meeting? Would that suffice and give a report, or would you advise written?
I always would prefer written testimony be dealt with, but I suppose the council could direct staff to look into the issue.
Or a combination thereof, perhaps?
Zero in on that since they take on some of those lands, either their realty specialist or their current manager.
Let's, yeah. How about we let that simmer? I mean, obviously, we can't do anything with that tonight because there's new information that's come out. But we need to, research.
The paper trail is really good.
Yeah, written would be wonderful, that we could review. And, if we have any questions or anything, then we could have Dave or Carla address those. So we are careful about the ex parte. Yeah, I think that's wise.
So,
What do you guys think?
well, say what you're, I'm not sure, so you're gonna have written testimony from Annette,
Yes.
and then it will be given to, Carl and Dave to review.
Well, and us to review. Yeah,
And
to
us to
become
review.
part of the.
Okay, okay, and then Bureau of Land,
And I would have Nick, if she's willing, reach out to the, or Kate, or wants to, I guess, if she thinks that's important, have those folks weigh in on the matter in writing as well.
okay.
And then we go from there and see where that news chips fall.
What do you think of that? Without word?
I think that's, I think it's good to communicate and for them to gather more information about the areas of concern that have been brought up. But we're also more than willing to, there may be questions that we don't know to ask.
So we'll get the,
Maybe you guys find
that part of the comp plan, we'll send that out. Just request that from Dave. And then you'll have it in writing as well.
And I also suggest section the irrigation as well, so their concerns could be made part of.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think we'll get you what we have, and then you can get us what you have, and they can get us what they have if they want to. So, yeah. Okay, very good.
Can I say one more thing?
Of course.
I thought I heard you say that there is no walking allowed at all on the lower canal. Did you say something about walking? Because we had that come up last time at the council meeting. Some of the younger, girls were jogging and they got in trouble. So they were told to get off the canal. So we cannot walk at all on the lower canal, is what I'm
So
hearing.
we'll work on it.
Yeah,
We'll work.
we want to know that.
Ask her after
too.
that.
It's a beautiful walk.
Okay. Thank you. I do want to point out that the new comp plan does address the golf course. Since we're on the comp plan, we did add language to the comp plan as part of our goal and policy to protect the golf course. And that was not in the old comp plan. So hopefully the folks that are reading the old and comparing it to the new do see that this council is trying to protect that valuable asset. Just wanted to point that out. Anybody, that's all I have. Anybody else have anything that I'm missing or that it's showing on here that we can discuss? Please speak up. Okay, if there's nothing else, then I will close the hearing. Correct. We need to do that first before we close it. So we need a motion to set the next meeting date and time
Do we not talk about that?
and leave the, and to leave the record.
So our next meeting, the council meeting is on the 12th. We kind of talked about how these kind of go along, so we don't want to put them back to back, like on the same day.
Yes.
So do we want to do another Monday?
Monday works for me. I'm on work that day, so I have time.
And these generally work.
Is-
6 p.m. again?
Yeah, I was looking at my calendar and with vacation and work and all the, everybody else's vacation at work. The 11th seems to work well for myself. I think that's a Monday.
Problem is, we have a community event that night, circuit learning night.
Cricket,
The cricket, the cricket thing. Is that gonna be outside?
I know the weather for the rest of August. Monday at 6 on the schedule for.
For community events. The girls have worked really hard to get a lot of these put together. So they had to move theirs, that's, you heard all the noise downstairs. They had to move trivia downstairs. It was supposed to be up here tonight.
so then I could potentially, if I take PTO, which I, it's gonna cost me, but, I usually like to reserve my PTO for my family, but, this is important. If there's gonna be a significant portion of the population at the cricket learning, then we probably shouldn't. I mean, do you know how many people are signed up for that, Dave?
No, I don't know. They won't know until the week before usually, but they have these scheduled publicly, so. I gave you, everybody a copy of that already. And then- Really,
This may be the best thing.
what Thursdays, Janie, do you have the meetings at the fire department?
Second and fourth.
Second and fourth.
I can always miss.
So what about the 14th?
And they have a water fight at the HEP Cafe, so I think we're clear. So.
What did they choose?
Water fight,
Water.
yeah, I want you to come and get wet, so you deal with water, fight, so.
Yeah, August 14th is usually hot.
Yep. Yep.
So, yes.
Busy on the second.
Yeah, does that work for you, Jane? That would be the.
Yeah.
The 14th is what I'm trying to, I'm sorry, guys. Mondays and Tuesdays work for me, but summertime is vacation. Okay, so it's the 14th, this house, the 14th work for everybody at 6.
Well, if everyone's fine with that, then I can make a motion.
Okay.
Are we good with 14 at this?
So, yeah, I'm getting, I'm hearing.
Okay, so I will make a motion to keep the hearing open. And we will meet on Thursday, August 14th at 6 p.m. at City Hall.
Okay, so Berlin made a motion to keep the record open and have the next meeting August 14th at 6 p.m. at City Hall. Jesse has seconded. Richard, how do you vote?
Yes.
Berlin,
Yes.
Janie, Jesse, Tammy,
Yes.
Maria,
Yes.
motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so then now we adjourn. So meeting adjourned. Thank you everyone for coming. If you want to talk and have some questions answered, please stick around. I'm more than willing to hang out and discuss with folks.